Welcome back to Market on Close. I'm Sam Vadas at the New York Stock Exchange alongside Alex Coffey in our Chicago studio today. So some final thoughts on today's session. And you and I were talking about this one a little earlier, Alex, on your show. I mean, rare earths and critical mineral stocks are lower today. We had critical metals that were down 15% or so. USA rare earths down about 14%. Now, why is the big question? Well, we've obviously seen this pattern that this trade has been sort of closely linked to some of the concerns and the worries over Chinese export controls. But what we actually saw over the weekend was some developments, a so-called sort of transactional truce between the two sides. A White House sort of fact sheet came out saying that China is looking to perhaps restore the chips and the rare earth trade. Now, Trump suggested to 60 Minutes off the back of that the threat of China's export controls on rare earths is completely gone. So China is also perhaps going to drop some investigations targeting U.S. companies, including antitrust probes into the likes of Nvidia, for instance. The US, for its part, will pause some reciprocal tariffs for a year. It will also suspend plans to implement the 100% tariff that has been talking about as far as November is concerned. Now, obviously, some of these stocks had rallied on the back of tightening export controls on expectation and speculation, basically, of more support from the government here in the US to build out those domestic supply chains. Now, as you and I talked about earlier today, Alex, that fundamental fact that the government remains committed to this campaign does not go away. But obviously, we are seeing a bit of a pullback in some of these names. I mean, these are trades that a lot of retail investors had jumped into. I was speaking to KG earlier today. These had gone from, some of them, small cap companies to mid cap companies just on some of this thinking. So maybe there is a little bit of a pullback, maybe some profit taking. But this has also been sort of lumped into that basket of more of a speculative trade as well. And if you look across some of the other sectors today, think your nuclear, think your quantum and uranium, they were all down quite substantially today. So that sort of caught my eye. But what about you, Alex?
You know, Sam, we talk all the time on your show in the morning about the sectors, and I say oftentimes, like, don't overthink it. Start with the Magnificent Seven. Today is no different, and it's another day, another mega AI deal. Amazon OpenAI was no doubt the story of the session in my mind. And really, investors should thank OpenAI because Amazon accounted for about 11 points of the S&P rally today. Well, we're up 11 points on the closing print. So Amazon was the entire gain today. The other 499 fought to a draw. And that said, that's a big takeaway of mine as well, which is the AI trade. Nvidia, Amazon, Palantir, Oracle, you throw the names out there, we know them well. They continue to mask the battle that's raging on below the surface. And we talk about this all the time on Morning Trade Live, this idea of dispersion. And we talked about it with KG. It improved today in his words, and you still only had 40% of the NASDAQ higher and less than 40% of the S&P 500 higher. And then for something completely different, I just happened to notice we've been quoting the 10-year yield around 4%. Well, ever since the Fed coming off a little bit more hawkish, it seems like that may have started to act as a near-term floor, and we've started to see the yields go a little bit more sideways. But Sam, what else are you watching?
Yeah, you raised such interesting points. Look, as far as throwing ahead till to tomorrow, we've got a very, very big week as far as some of the earnings are concerned. Obviously, over 100 companies that are going to be reporting this week. Tomorrow on the docket, we obviously have Shopify, Spotify before the bell. One of the names that I'm going to be looking out for tomorrow, Alex, is Uber. And just as far as a preview of that, the stock was up just fractionally today. Look, it's had a pretty good run up this year, about 60%, although it hasn't been doing much lately, suffice to say. But the consensus going into this report is that the company is performing quite well operationally. So let's see what's driving growth. Will it be an update on the Uber ride hailing, the Uber Eats, and also we want to hear about what Uber sees as far as its own autonomous future. So that's what I'll be watching out for before the bell.
Yeah, I want to see how Palantir trades tomorrow. Interesting already post earnings. And then AMD after the close. We got to watch AMD.
Yep, AMD as well. It's going to be an interesting one, but that's going to do it here for Market on Close.